Welcome back. What's going on? Today we're going to continue with incident response. In the previous video, we talked about the first step in the incident response process, which happened to be the preparation. We mentioned what are the elements of preparation, the people, technology, and the processes, preparing all of these three elements for the occurrence of a cybersecurity incident. Now, in today's video, we're going to move on to the next phase in the incident response. After we have prepared the tools, the people, and the technology, we're going to talk about the identification and scoping. Sometimes it's called as the detection phase, as per the NIST framework. Okay, now what happens in the identification and scoping phase in the incident response? So basically, it is the detection phase, where it's the phase where we detect the occurrence of an incident. Now, how we call this the triage. Once an incident is reported or detected, we start the triage process. In the triage process, as you can see, guys, first we receive notifications or through log monitoring. So through either one of these two elements, okay, we hear about the incident. Sometimes a user notifies the IT team or the security team that their email was compromised or their machine is acting weird. So that's called event notifications. Log monitoring, the SOC team continuously monitors the network and the endpoints. Through this constant and continuous monitoring, they will be able to identify the weird instances or something out of the baseline. They will, once they see that, they will start triaging the incident. Now, we mentioned the difference between an incident and an event. An event is an occurrence, like a user connecting or logging to the system, while the incident is a violation of the organization's policy or something that risks data or endpoints. So the first thing is the identification. Identifications, we said earlier, it is actually through either event notifications or log monitoring. Okay, so now we know that there is an event that qualifies to be an incident. What we're gonna do next? The next thing we're gonna do is to move on to scoping. In scoping, we aim to identify two items. The first one is assets impacted, and the other one is the data at risk. What are the assets impacted? How many endpoints were compromised? If endpoints were not compromised, then what would be the subject or the main impacted object of this incident? So it could be an email, right? It could be an online account. So we identify the assets, the impacted assets. Now, once we identify the assets impacted, we're gonna pivot to the asset inventory. In the asset inventory, we have a list of all the assets in the network, like the devices, their role in the network, whether they are servers or endpoints, the IP addresses. An example of the asset inventory we're gonna see is in this room, identification and scoping. As you can see here, the author of this room has showcased an example of an asset inventory. As you can see, this is an example of an asset inventory. We see the asset type or the role, the asset name, the IP, the OS, and the owner. So once we identify an event, we aim to find out what is the asset impacted, whether it is mail server, web server, or proxy server, or anything in the asset inventory. The next thing we want to know or to quantify, maybe not quantify, maybe identify, is the data at risk. So say that we discovered that there is an incident in the web server. We want to know what are the data that's at risk. In the case of a web server, it could be the web server files. It could be sensitive files. It could be the database. All of these information or all of these data is now at risk. So now we identified the scoping, the data and the assets. There is another item here, which is the spreadsheet of doom. The spreadsheet of doom is This is an example of a spreadsheet of doom. As you can see, it is designed to list all of the indicators of compromise that have been discovered in past incidents during the analysis of past incidents. Remember that in the incident response, at the end, we come up with a list of artifacts. The artifacts are the IPs, hashes, files that were responsible mainly for the occurrence of the incident or the compromise. So the spreadsheet of doom, what is the connection here? The connection is that the spreadsheet of doom contains a list of all of the indicators of compromise that were discovered in the past through previous incidents or the analysis of previous incidents or through threat intelligence feeds. So by looking at this spreadsheet here and trying to correlate the information with the information found during the analysis, you will speed up the analysis time. For example, let's say that the asset impacted in the incident was the web server. Now, during the analysis, you discovered that the IP address that was sending the suspicious requests to the web server, you discovered its IP address of the sender. Now you're going to take the IP address and search in this sheet. You'll see if the IP address is found in this list. And based on that, you'll be able to identify the type of threat. So for example, here as you can see, this IP address is correlated with malware hosting. And the source, I mean, where did you get this from? We got this from Alien Vault OTX intelligence feed. Now this one, we got this from previous analysis. Okay, now after we have done that, it's time to start collecting the evidence. In collecting the evidence, we employ the skills of the incident responder and forensic analyst. Here, basically, it's an open field. We try to use all of the available tools and technology to collect the evidence related to the incidents. And through the analysis, we'll be able to come up with a list of the artifacts. Again, we said the artifacts are the IPs, domains, emails, and file hashes that are connected to the source of the incident. We correlate the information with the list here to find out or to enhance the analysis or enhance the process of identification and scoping. As you can see, after we do that, we will be able to find out what happened and we'll be able to start the previous steps of the incident response. As you can see in the previous, the next steps. In the next step, we start the containment, eradication and recovery, and lastly, lessons unlearned. We stop the analysis at this phase. Then we start to contain the incident, basically if it was a malware compromise or a phishing campaign. Because at this critical phase, we gather as much information as possible about the incident and we identify the specifics of the incident. We try to find out whether it is a phishing email, whether it is a malware infection, because based on that phase, the following phases, especially the containment, will follow. Okay, now as a practical example of this phase, we're going to take a look at this room from TryHackMe, which is part of the SOC level 2, specifically the incident response track. So in this room here, we have Outlook opened here, and it contains a list of emails exchanged between colleagues about an incident. We're going to start the analysis by going through the emails one by one. So in task 2, we have a couple of questions to answer. So what is the subject of ticket 202 and ends with 232? As you can see, it is the first ticket here. And by going over the ticket here, we can see it is a list of forwarded emails. We're gonna scroll all the way down to start from the very beginning. So at the very beginning, we have an email coming from Support Me Workflow to the SOC team. The subject contains a ticket name, and probably this is the affected workstation with the affected domain and the affected IP address. Now, here the email says a user opened a security related incident ticket. Please see details below, the ticket number, the affected machine, and the subject. The subject here contains the nature of the incident. Okay. Now, as reported by the user, it doesn't. Now, the subject here doesn't necessarily reflect the full scope of the incident. It just reflects the early symptoms of the incident. Here we got an error or a weird error in Outlook. Description or detailed description of the incident. I sent an email to Alex and I got this error. So a user reported the incident. So here we got, or we actually knew about the incident through event notifications. Okay, so the subject of the email is weird error in Outlook. According to your colleague John, the issue outlined in ticket 202-232 could be related to what? Okay, so now we know what happened. Let's follow through the emails to find out what is related to. So next we have an email coming from John to the IT operations and support team. We are currently investigating the activity as per ticket, requesting exchange server logs and message trace pertaining to the following emails. Michael, probably this is the user who reported the incident, and Alex, this is the user that Michael tried to send an email to. Additionally, can you retrieve the web proxy logs for the following machine? Okay, so what do we know so far? We know what is the affected machine, the host name of the affected machine, and its IP address. And now the IT team is requesting logs and web proxy logs and exchange server logs to analyze the error and find out what is the problem. Okay, so what is related to? We still cannot find out. We're gonna go up. See, there's a email from Damien to the IT team. Now, Damien is a system administrator. It's crucial to know the role of every user involved in the email loops here. So, hey John, we will get back to you as soon as possible once we have extracted all you need. So basically, Damien is within the IT team and he will send the logs, exchange server logs, and web proxy logs to Jonathan. Apparently, Jonathan is part of the SOC team. Okay, let's follow through the story. Next, we have from a message from Jonathan to Damien again. Now, this is one. Thanks. Next. Next, we have an email from Damien, the IT admin, to Jonathan, and addressing the SOC team in CC. Hi John, sorry it took a while. The exchange server logs were too large, but we have already transferred it to the file server and can be found there. Also, Alex does not exist on Exchange. However, Alexander Swift at swiftspend.finance does. I also noticed that the non-existent email, Mike sent an email to Alexander with the same subject. I extracted the emails received the past couple days. Attached are the requested items. So good. Now the IT team has sent all the exchange logs pertaining to the email addresses affected, all the email addresses mentioned in the query here. We see a response from John thanks. These should allow us to analyze the timeline of the events. Very interesting artifacts we got here. Okay. Now the IT team is analyzing the artifacts. So as you can see here, guys, the artifacts now here, or the maybe let's call it the data pertaining to the incident, encompass the exchange logs and the web server logs. Let's start from the very beginning. Now this one is the okay. Let's scroll up. All right, so here we see the response from the IT team. Okay, and the response contains the logs. Let's open up the logs. This is the message trace result. Okay, we open this up in Excel. Okay, so we see an email from sales to Alexander Swift, and the status is delivered. Fine. And then next we see an email from the same email, sales, sent to Michael, and it was delivered with no subject. Lastly, we see an email from Alex Swift. This email was mentioned by Damien or John, I cannot remember, that this email doesn't exist. This email sent an email to Michael and it was delivered. And then we see another one from Mike to Alexander and it was delivered. Okay, let's go back to the email here. We want to know, see, Alex Swift does not exist on Exchange. Let's go here. Alex, this one does not exist. But how come the email, the address sent an email? Okay, that's weird. However, Alexander Swift does. Alexander Swift, this one. Indeed, this email exists, and a surefire sign that it exists because it received an email successfully from Mike. Okay, I also noticed that a non-existent email, Mike Ascot, sent an email to Alexander. Okay, so now we have two emails that do not exist. We have Mike and we have Alex. These two emails, okay, or these two addresses, they sent two emails, namely to Michael and Alexander, and these two emails were delivered. So probably here, based on the input from the IT team, okay, we can conclude that these two emails probably they actually part of a spoofing campaign. Someone is sending emails, okay, as these two addresses. So we have an attacker here trying to spoof the addresses of Alex and Mike to make the email look credible. That's called spoofing. So it is related to spoofing here. Okay, but the answer of this question is like this. I'm gonna tell you why. We're gonna move on. This one is another ticket, I guess. It ends with 233. We're not gonna take a look at this. Next, we have an email from. Okay, scrolling down. Look at this. There's an email sent to Alex Swift. It was mentioned by the IT team that this email doesn't exist. That's why we got this error. Delivery has failed. Okay. Now from Michael to Derek. Derek, I hope this email finds you well. I'm reaching out because I've encountered this strange email. I know this is not the usual way of reporting such things, but I thought I would reach out to you first, given our friendship. This afternoon, I received an email from Alex that I thought was legitimate, but turned out not to be after speaking with him personally. I know this is not typical process, and I apologize for inconvenience. So basically, Michael, the user who reported the incident. Next, we have, as you can see, Derek is the head of IT. And we see Derek replying to or forwarding the email to the IT team and the SOC team. Emily, SecOps, I hope this message finds you well. I'm writing to bring an urgent matter to your attention. We have received an alarming report from our CFO that suggests a potential security incident. The nature of this or the nature of the issue leads me to believe that it may involve a phishing scam, which would compromise our organization's security. I'm including the full details of the reported incident. All right. Next, we have Emily acknowledging the receipt of the email, and then we got, this one. We got Jonathan. Remember that Jonathan is the security engineer team, part of the SOC. Now, Jonathan is replying to Emily. Remember, Emily was head of security. Could this issue be related to the missing email security, SPF, DKIM, and DMARC records in our mail server I reported a while back? Last update we received from Derek and team has been from end of January, before Oliver ever joined. Can you please follow up with him? There has been no change since then, and now may be a good time to address these. Yeah, that's the cause of all of this drama here. The main domain, which happens to be the domain of the organization in question, doesn't have the appropriate records, SPF, DKIM, and DMARC records. If you don't have these records, or if a domain doesn't have these records correctly configured, it may lead to others, namely attackers, being able to spoof legitimate addresses from the organization's emails. That's why here, as you can see, guys, these two emails, despite their non-existence, we see emails coming from these two addresses. And that's because the attackers were able to spoof these two addresses. They think the attackers have gathered information about the company or organization, and they found out that they gathered the names of the employees, Michael, Alexander. They assumed that their email addresses may follow this formula: name, surname, name, surname. So they crafted phishing campaigns or phishing scams, and making these phishing scams looking like coming from these two addresses to convince the users, namely Michael and Alexander, to open them. And that's because the main organization's domain lacked these records. And that's how the answer, how we found the answer. Your colleague requested what kind of data pertaining to machine 02. Remember that Jonathan, the sysadmin, or maybe the SOC team, requested two kinds of data: the message trace and the web proxy logs. So far, so forth, we are here. Event notification. We received information about an ongoing event, okay? And now, looks like the IT and SOC team, they started to scope the incident. They identified the assets impacted through the IP address on the host name. And now together we're gonna identify the data at risk through the asset inventory and spreadsheet of doom. Task 3, based on ticket 202-231, the same one, and asset inventory shown in this task. Who owns the computer that needs endpoint protection definitions updated? Remember, in the first email, we knew that the machine in question, or the affected machine, has this IP address and has this hostname. If we go to our asset inventory, we can see that it is 02. Let me check. The IP that ends with 151. It is the Windows 10 Pro, and the owner of this machine is Michael Ascott. Derek Marshall. So here the answer should be Michael, yeah, because he's the owner of the machine with the IP address that ends with 151. But because the IPs change here, previously during the first attempt it was 10. That's why here I answer with Derek. So the owner of the machine is Michael, not Derek. Based on the email exit changes and SOD shown in this task, what was the phishing domain where the compromised credentials in ticket 202-232 were submitted? Based on the email exit changes and SOD shown in this task, what was the phishing domain where the compromised credentials were submitted? Okay, so if you go up here, you can see the list of the indicators of compromise that were discovered previously. As you can see, we have the ticket number mentioned here. This ticket number matches the ticket number that is being analyzed now. If we correlate to other entries, we can see the threat type is spoofed email, and we can see the indicators. We have two email addresses. These two email addresses that are the email addresses that were spoofed. Again, we have a third entry highlighting the same ticket number. Now it is related to phishing domain, and the phishing domain was given here. See here, in this case, we were able to collect or to find an artifact based on this sheet, not based on the analysis. So we saved time. Okay, based on ticket 202-233, what phishing domain should be added to the SOD? Now we are analyzing another ticket. This one, the one that ends with 233. As you can see, a user opened a security related incident ticket. Please see details below. Ticket number, the affected host, IP address 150. If you go up here, we can see who is the owner of 150. Yeah, 150 is not included in the asset inventory. Fine. The subject of the ticket, suspicious email, and the description says, I received an email that redirects me to this domain and asks me to log into Office 365. So this is a typical classic phishing campaign, and this is the domain. Can be found here. Okay, task 4. In task 4, concerning ticket 202-232, so we're back to the first one. And according to your colleague John, what domain should be added to the SOD since it was used for email spoofing? What domain should be added to the SOD since it was used for email spoofing? It looks like we're gonna have to get back to the communications between the related parties regarding the incident. Okay, so we're gonna have to go back. Let's see this one. So this one, it is from, let's start from the beginning. The beginning here we have the notification from Michael, and then we have the acknowledgement by the SOC team that the incident was received, and then we have another email from John, the SOC analyst. As Oliver and I suspected, Mike received a spoofed email, and this is indeed related to our mail server's security. As you can see, guys, here Mike or Jonathan has analyzed the email header, and by analyzing the email header we'll be able to find out the original domain name that the attacker used in sending the email. Here you can see the email address and domain name used and the IP address. These two artifacts should be added as well to the list of the evidence collected. Concerning the available artifacts gathered for analysis of ticket 202-232, who is the other user that received a similar phishing email but did not open the ticket nor report the issue? Remember, guys, based on the sheet we opened earlier, let's see here, where is that sheet? Yeah, the message trace, we saw two email addresses. We saw Mike and we saw another user. The other user was Alexander. Alexander also was a target of this phishing campaign with spoofing taste or spoofing flavor. So Alexander did not report the event, while on the other hand Michael did. So we have Alexander as the other user who did not report the event. And also we have this email address should also be added to the list of the evidences. So you have Alexander, and what additional IOC could be added to the SOD and be used as a pivot point of discovery. We have this email address as well, because this email sent email addresses to the affected employees. Based on the email exchanges and attachments in those exchanges, what is the password of the compromised user? Okay, remember that Jonathan has asked the IT team to collect exchange logs, which we have analyzed, and the web server logs or web proxy logs. Probably here we're gonna have to look at the web proxy logs. So if you open this up, so we have the web proxy logs and contains all of the web transactions. But unfortunately, because this is unlicensed product, we cannot edit on the cells here to be able to just drag them to the left or to the right to make the data clear and examinable. So basically we're not gonna use this view. We're gonna just click here and maybe preview. So this view is not that nice, but we're gonna have to work with it, at least in my case. If you scroll down to this very line, I'm gonna highlight this. Yeah, this one, 14 July. We can see that Michael Askett, okay, has tried to access, as you can see guys, ngrok free app / submit dash login username equal Michael and password equal password. And the result was 200 allowed. So here Michael was trying to log in, or maybe the attacker was trying to log in with Mike password. The password is found here in the password field. So that was the password. And this was all of it.